Now, last Thursday, hundreds of Victorian students skipped classes to join a bunch of activists in an anti-Israeli demonstration in the Melbourne CBD. Students taking part in the school strike gathered on the steps of Flinders Street station at 1:30 p.m, where they were chanting things like "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," a genocidal chant that would mean the eradication of the only Jewish state. Victoria Police seemed entirely comfortable with those sort of anti-Semitic slurs and intimidation. What sparked them into action, however, was a peaceful pro-Israel protester. Mr Kahlberg and three of his friends were at the protest to counter the anti-Israeli sentiment, but after being accosted by pro-Palestinian protesters at various points, he was then targeted by police, who accused him of breaching the peace. Here's some footage from Channel 10 News showing Adam being approached by police officers.
One man carrying an Israel flag was told to move on. Police concerned his presence would spark clashes between the groups.
Well, they were chanting "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." I don't think they really understand what that means. They're chanting about genocide.
Adam, walk us through what happened, why the police approached you. Were you being aggressive? Were you doing anything unlawful?
Yeah, so as you can see, on Thursday, obviously they had their Students for Palestine rally, and I decided to go down to show kind of an opposing voice and an opposing view, a pro-Israel side. And three of my friends who happened to be in the city at the time joined me. So I went down across the road from Flinders Street, just on the opposite corner. I had with me a flag that I had in my bag at the time, some like kidnapped posters and some kidnapped stickers, kidnapped Israelis, that is. I decided to pull out the flag, and it wasn't stretched out at all. It was pretty scrunched up. And then within about a minute, a police officer had come up to me and basically told me that he advised me to put the flag away, because if something was to happen, I could be in trouble for breaching the peace, even if someone had, come up to me and caused a ruckus. And I tried to be very clear that I was a bit surprised that it would be my fault if something like that had happened. That police officer basically said, "Look, I advise you to put it away, but, do what you want." And then he went away. About 2 or 3 minutes later, 3 more police officers came up to us. And at this point, they weren't really up for discussion. One of the male officer basically just took the flags, took the posters, took the stickers. And the female officer was trying to have a bit more of a discussion with me. But between the two incidents, nothing had really occurred. A male had pulled down one of the stickers, and I had just asked him why, but that was the only thing. But nothing violent. No one had really come up to me and said anything. And then, 2 of my friends got moved on because they were just asking questions, but I was allowed to stay. So it kind of got a little bit worse from there. I followed the crowd down and was hearing chants of the classic chants of "Free, free Palestine" and "From the river to the sea." And I decided I would, after about 5 or 10 minutes, I added in "From Hamas" as an extension of the chant, which upset a lot of the protesters. I was subsequently told to F off by a couple of teenage girls, and it kind of got to the point where the protesters stopped on a corner. One of the girls who had told me to F off came up to me and basically said, "If someone doesn't punch you, I'm going to hook you." At this point, there were a couple of other, say, 15 or 16-year-old boys who'd kind of gathered around. And then a police officer came after the girl had said that. She'd come face to face with me, pulled my arm, basically took me to the pavement and said, "You were warned to, you were told to move on," which I wasn't. And he also indicated that I'd been aggressive and been resisting him, which also wasn't true at all.
So let me get this straight. You're there, you've got an Israeli flag, which seems to trigger police across the country. As soon as they see the blue and white, they spark into action. You're told you could be in trouble if trouble starts, even if you haven't caused it. And then you have people threatening you, threatening to hook you, punch you, and the cops target you instead of those making the threats. I mean, this seems like textbook victim blaming to me. That's astonishing. Are you going to pursue this with the police and try to get an explanation of their behaviour on that day, or have you made a complaint at all?
Yeah, so look, I first want to say that I completely understand that it's a really difficult situation for the police, and they're, I think, a bit scarred from what happened at COVID and what happened a couple of weeks ago in Caulfield with things escalating. And from a logistical perspective, I understand, potentially the need to move me on at some point. However, we can't. I find it a bit difficult to understand how we can allow people to be saying potentially genocidal chants running down the street, which I find very offensive. But then if I was to pull out a flag, I get moved on in case, or I'd be in trouble for breaching the peace if someone was to hit me. So I spoke to my member for Parliament, and he said he would take it up with his assistant commissioner. I will say most of my interactions with the police, 99% of them have been great. It was just unfortunately on that day, it seemed to be, I think, at a heightened level of stress, and I don't think they really necessarily read the situation.
Well, you're being very understanding, Adam. Yeah. You're being very understanding, more understanding than I would be, because I think your experience here mirrors what we've seen elsewhere, particularly in Sydney, where we've had men with Israeli flags arrested or apprehended now, at least a couple of times on camera. It happened again on Friday. Let's have a look.
Hands down. You're holding my hands down. Take your hands down. I will walk it down. I will walk peacefully. Do not touch me.
Do you believe this is a case of two-tier policing, where the police think it's easier to target the law-abiding lone protester who's pro-Israel than the mob who can be quite angry and agitated if challenged? So they go for the easy option rather than actually enforcing the law.
Yeah, I do think that is the case. And I definitely think that there is this idea that maybe the mob, or for whatever reason, is potentially more violent, or they may spark something. And I don't think that's right, because for every opportunity they have to protest, and especially when it comes to young children in high school who should be learning about, critical thinking skills and how to assess a situation, we're not allowed to have an opposing voice or a voice that's a different opinion, because it may cause something, but they're allowed to spout things that are wildly offensive, inaccurate as well. And simply being there with an Israeli flag is enough to, be quite provocative. And I don't think that that's fair. I think that, sometimes you look at the states where they do protect, other types of speech that may be deemed quite offensive or provocative, and there is a little bit more protection. I think in this case that might need to be implemented, or might be necessary.
Adam, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Rita. Have a good one.